So I'd like to welcome all of you to our event today, which is an Intro to Open Source Contributions workshop. My name is Nguyen, for those of you who haven't met me yet, and I'm the Leadership Fellow for the Women Who Code mobile track. The speakers for our workshop today are Cecelia Martinez and Devanshi Modha. Cecelia is a developer advocate for Appflow at Ionic. Previous companies include Cypress and Replay, and she is passionate about open source dev tools and building inclusive developer communities. She is a volunteer with Women Who Code, chapter head of Out in Tech Atlanta, a previous GitHub Star, and has served on the program committee for multiple tech conferences. Devanshi is an iOS engineer at Accenture and a member of the Swift's Contributor Experience Work Group as a diversity and Swift champion, with a keen interest in promoting inclusion in tech and advocating for open source software. She enjoys giving shape to ideas, whether it be through developing apps or working with origami. Both skills allow one to follow a set of instructions, but with the freedom to modify and personalize. Thank you so much for Cecelia and Devanshi for leading this workshop today. I'll hand the presentation over to both of you now.
Great, thank you so much. Awesome. I'll go ahead and get my screen share here.
By the way, real quick, I just want to let everyone know that go ahead and type your questions in the chat, but we will answer questions near the end of the presentation. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. We'll have some time available towards the end to answer any questions that y'all have. So if anything comes up where you can't hear me or the slides stop showing, then definitely let me know right away so I can make sure that everyone can see and hear everything clearly.
And I'll keep an eye on the chat in case that's the case. But
great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Looks like everyone can see my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and let Devanshi get us started here.
Yep. Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome again. And we are here to get started with open source contributions. It's a great way to learn new things, meet new people, and a very rewarding experience. So here is the agenda. We'll start with an overview of the OS's contribution. We'll then discuss the OS contribution process via live walkthrough. And then we'll see how to find and contribute to OS's projects. And at the end, we'll do some practice session as well. Yeah. Moving ahead, also, let's start with the overview and the basics of OSs. So what exactly is OSs? So it is basically open source software and code, which is distributed along with its source code, which means that anyone can modify, inspect, or enhance the code, including for commercial purposes. And is typically licensed with very limited restriction on its reusability. Popular open source licenses include Apache license, MIT, etc. The project can have one or many contributors, and the code is typically distributed in public repository like GitHub, GitLab, etc. And most common open source projects have maintainer or core team responsible for managing the contributions and ensuring the quality of the code. Yeah. Moving ahead, we'll go through the benefits of contributing. It includes many benefits, such as when you contribute to an open source project, you are helping to improve the software that you and others rely on. This can lead to a better user experience, and software can include more features and bug fixes. Contributing is a great way to learn new skills or improve your existing skills as well. You'll get to work on real world software projects and collaborate with other developers, which is a great way to meet the community and help each other grow. Even if you are an experienced developer, you can mentor new developers and help others learn, grow, and make them learn to contribute. This is a great way to giving back to the community and seeing others succeed in their respective fields as well. Also, your contributions are pretty much in a public record, which can be a great demonstration for your portfolio, or even if you are looking for a new job. It helps you to learn about different software development processes and practices, which will make you a well-rounded developer. Yeah. Going ahead, we can see how and what are the types of contributions that you can do. So let's go through each one of them. So first of all, choosing a project that is related to your skill and interest, so that you can make meaningful contributions. Start by reading the project documentation, which is very important. That will further help you to understand the project's code base and the contributing guidelines as well. Generally, the project's issue tracker will have the known bugs or the feature requests, and you can start by picking them up via contacting the maintainer and picking up the open issue. Yeah, even if you have a new idea or feature, you can propose the same to the project maintainer as well. And once approved, you can implement the feature and submit a pull request. Even if you have design skills, you can help by designing new interfaces or other assets for the project. For writers, you can help by writing documentation for the project, including tutorials, API documentation, or the project guidelines as well, the contributing guidelines, etc. For testers, you can help by writing tests for the project, which will ensure the stability of the project. Also, you can help by maintaining the CI/CD pipeline, which can improve the automation process for building and testing the project. Also, if you are even good at communication skills, you can help by managing issues and pull requests for the project. It could involve triggering issues, assigning issues to developers, reviewing pull requests, etc. So no matter what your skills are, there is a way for you to contribute to open source software. Do not afraid of making mistakes. Contributing to open source is a great way to learn new skills. Just start small, be patient, and be respectful when interacting with the community. Yeah, moving on to next slide. DigitalOcean runs Hacktoberfest in October and celebrating open source software, which is a great way to get started with an open source contribution, or to increase your contribution count in open source. So to participate, visit the hacktoberfest.com website and get yourself registered. The website has all the information you need to know about how to participate in the event, including the rules and the regulations. Join the Discord server to ask questions and get help from other participants. Also, make sure the projects you contribute to are participating in Hacktoberfest to get your PRs counted and be eligible for the rewards. You can check this by looking at the Hacktoberfest tag on the project's repository page. Also, make sure all your PRs are quality contributions and not just for the sake of it. So once your 4 PRs or MRs are accepted before October 31, you should be eligible to get the rewards. Also, don't forget to check the website for the more details. I'll hand over to Cecelia now to go through the contribution process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Devanshi, for going through all that in great detail. Yeah, so now we're going to talk about the actual process that you would go through to contribute to an open source project, specifically whether you're doing this for Hacktoberfest or whether you're looking to just get involved with open source. I know that people learn in different ways, so I'm going to run through this process in a few different methods. The first thing I want to talk about is a list of the process steps in bullet point form. So if this looks like a lot to you, don't worry, we're also going to walk through it visually and then do a live walkthrough. So the first thing that you need to do is to prepare to contribute. You'll find a project that works well for you that you're interested in contributing to and review the contributing guide. There should be a contributing.md like markdown file in the repository for the project that you're looking to contribute to. This guide will include things such as what is required for new contributions, if there's any processes that you need to take place in order to claim an issue, if there's requirements for writing tests or anything that is should accompany your pull request. All of that will be outlined in the contributing guide. Then you'll review the open issues for that project, and then you'll find and claim an issue. It's always best, in my opinion, to work from an existing issue rather than just create a new pull request that is not tied to an issue. This is because the maintainers have already identified what things that they would like you to work on. An unsolicited pull request that does not accompany any kind of issue, may not get approved if it's not in line with the project. So always best to, especially for your first time out, definitely start by looking at what's already been identified that can be worked on. Then you're going to fork the repo, which means to essentially make your own copy of the original project repository under your GitHub username. And then you're going to clone or make a local copy of that repository so that you can go ahead and make changes. Then you're going to create your contribution. You do this by creating a new branch locally, making your changes, saving them, staging them, and committing them, as well as pushing those changes to your own remote branch of your fork. Finally, you'll submit your contribution by creating a pull request to that original project repository. Will be likely, potentially, depends on how things go, a code review process that you'll need to work through with the maintainer. And finally, the maintainer will then merge your pull request once it's been approved. So I'm going to walk through some slides very quickly. Again, we're going to go through this live as well. But when it comes to finding and claiming an issue, you'll typically see a GitHub issue like this, and it's good to look for that good first issue label, especially if it's your first time contributing. And then commenting, or if they have a different process outlined in their contributing guide, such as adding a tag or some other kind of process, you'll want to follow those instructions. You'll then fork the repository in GitHub and create a new fork under your own username. You'll then clone the repository locally. Now, you do have some options for how you clone locally. You can either clone with HTTPS, which will authenticate with your GitHub username and a personal access token. You can clone with SSH, which will authenticate with an SSH key passphrase, or you can clone with the GitHub CLI, in which you have pre-authenticated with GitHub auth login. So as a prerequisite, many of you probably have already authenticated your local machine with your GitHub account. So you'll use whichever version that you have authenticated with, whether you're using a personal access token, the SSH key passphrase, or the GitHub CLI. And you can check on these links in order to read the documentation on which one is best for you. I personally use the GitHub CLI because I find the CLI very easy to use, and it does a lot of other things as well. So that's the example that we'll be using today, but you do have options. So you go ahead and clone the repository locally. You will create and check out a new branch. In this case, I'm creating my new branch with the name add project. I am creating my changes. So in this case, I have a projects markdown file, and I'm adding a new entry into that markdown file. I am then adding that projects.md file, which is the staging. So when you do git add, that's what we call staging the changes. And then we are committing with a commit message. So that git commit add project to list. That is our commit message. And again, this is all on our branch in our fork. So we are not doing anything on the original repository just yet. That comes in the next step. So we're going to push changes to our remote fork branch. And once we do that, we're able to start our pull request. You can either click on the link that outputs in the terminal once you push your changes. This is what I do. I just command click on that link and it opens up a brand new page for me. Or you can visit your repository and you'll see a banner that lets you know that a new branch on your repo has recent pushes, and you can click compare and pull request in order to initiate a pull request. So you can either do it from the terminal or you can go to GitHub and do it via the UI. Then you'll be able to actually create your pull request. You'll notice that we are pulling from our add project branch on my repository into the main branch on the base repository. You'll want to make sure that you add a helpful description and reference a GitHub issue that the PR resolves, and then create your pull request. Now, I mentioned that if needed, there's code review. So there's a couple different ways that this may play out depending on the types of review the maintainer does. So you can either accept edits. So maintainers may make edits directly to your PR. The GitHub UI allows them to go into lines and make changes, which then you can see in the UI and accept, and then commit them directly in the GitHub UI. If you do this, you'll want to, in the future, make sure that you pull down those changes locally once they've been merged in. You can also push new commits directly to the same branch. So for example, if the maintainer says, hey, we need you to change this, but doesn't actually make any edits directly, they typically won't if it's a larger change, then you'll want to push new commits to your same remote branch. And that will automatically update the pull request so that you can make changes without having to do a new PR. So you can do that as well to address any code review and any code review recommendations made by the maintainer. All right, so now let's go ahead and do a live walkthrough. So if you'd like to read the steps, if you'd like to see the screenshots, and then now we're going to walk through it together. So we're going to claim an issue, we're going to fork and clone the repo, we're going to commit and push changes, and then we're also going to create a pull request. So let me go ahead and exit from the slides here. And here we are in the OSS projects repository that Devanshi set up for us. So this is for the webinar. And what we're looking to do is take a look first here at the issues, right? So we have our issues tab. Now there's no contributing guide just because it's a pretty straightforward sample repository, but I would also read the contributing guide if there were one. So this issue here says add OSS projects to list. And the issue says go to projects.md file in the root of the project, add your answer to the bottom of the list per the instructions in the file. So we can go ahead and leave a comment and say, I'll take this one, and comment on the issue. And that lets the maintainer know that we'd like to work on that issue. Depending on the complexity of the project, like I said, they may have more of a process. They may say, wait until you get a response before you start working on it, or you may be able to just kind of claim it. But that's what we'll do here. So we've identified that this is the issue that we want to work on, and it's issue number 1. The next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and create our fork. And so we'll do that by clicking this fork button here. And if I hover over it, I can see it says fork your own copy. So we'll click on that. And we'll see that under our own username now, I'm creating a repo called OSS projects Lumen Who Code. I'm going to copy the main branch only, and I'm going to click create fork. And that's going to just take a few seconds, and it's creating a version for me. And so here I have, it's Cecelia creates /OSS projects Lumen Who Code. And I can see that it has this message here that it's been forked from Devanshi's project. So this is my own version, but it is related to Devanshi's. We call that upstream. So Devanshi's project is the upstream repository for my fork. Now what we can do is we can see that all the code that we have here, the main branch has been copied. Now we'll want to clone this project so that I can work on it locally. If we click on this this green code button, we can see some options. So we could open it or code space, but I mentioned that we have those three options, right? We have HTTPS, we have SSH, and we have GitHub CLI. If you're using HTTPS or SSH, you're going to run git clone and then paste this kind of URL or this kind of get at github.com into your terminal. I'm going to use the GitHub CLI. So I'm going to copy this command and I'm going to go ahead and open my terminal. So I have a workspace that I like to use for forks. So I'm going to CD into that. And then I'm just going to paste this git gh repo clone Cecelia create /OSS projects WWC. And it's going to go ahead and clone that. And I can see that that's been completed. And now I have cloned my fork locally.
Oh,
So now we can, yes.
Sorry for interrupting. There's a request. Can we make the font in the terminal bigger for everyone to see that command, if that's possible?
I think so. Let's see. Make text bigger. Yes. Okay. There is an option.
Oh, and then
How is that? Is
command
that
plus also works? Is that
yeah,
better?
that's what I'm using now. Command plus.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Great. All right. So, and I can also see here, right, that the upstream is still Devanshi's repository. So now that we have created that, I can actually start working and making changes in my project. But the first thing I want to do is CD into that project. So we're going to CD into OSS projects WWC. And I like to just run a little git status periodically just to kind of check in and make sure I'm doing things the right way. So it says that I'm on branch main and I'm up to date with origin main. But we don't want to make any changes to our main branch. We want to create a new branch for our changes. This is where we're going to create and check out a new branch. We go ahead and clear just so it's back up top here. So we're going to run git checkout -b. So git checkout is to check out a branch. When you do the -b, that means that you're going to create a new branch at the same time. And I'm going to create a branch called add project. And so I've switched to new branch, add project. And so again, just git status, I'm on this new branch and the working tree is clean. So now that I'm on this branch, I can start doing my work. So I'm going to open this directory here in VS Code, just using the code dot command. You can open it however you like. You can use whatever code editor you like. This is just what I prefer to use. And so here I have my projects.md file. And again, back to our issue that we were trying to resolve says that we need to add a new line with the project name. So it's what projects are you planning to contribute to during Hacktoberfest this year? Your answer should be in the following format. Add your entry below the last entry in this list. So I'm going to create a new line and I'm going to do this markdown format where I have a link. I'll fill that in just a second. Oh yeah, bigger.
Again. Can we make the font bigger? Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So again, I'm adding a new line here and I have kind of my markdown format for my link, which I'll fill in just a second. I'm going to do my name and I'm going to do my GitHub username. Now to fill in my project name, I'm going to grab that link here. I'm actually planning to work on the next modules project. This is a project that I've contributed to before. They have an Ionic module and you can see they have the Hacktoberfest tag here. So that means that they are participating in Hacktoberfest. And they have 22 open issues, some of them that are around documentation. So I would likely prefer to work on those. But this is something that I would like to contribute to. So that is the project that I'm going to add to the list here. So I'm going to paste the URL and I'm just going to give it the name and add that to the list. I'll go ahead and save my changes. So I saved this file locally and I can see kind of updated in VS Code that we have some changes. I'm going to go back to my terminal and I'll go ahead and just use the same terminal since it's already opened up here. And I'm going to do a git status. So I can see that on my branch, I have changes that are saved but not staged for commit. So now I want to stage my changes. So I'm going to run git add. And I'm going to do the actual, just the file name. You could do git add, where you add it like in hunks in a group. You could do git add dot if you're kind of like to play fast and loose. I prefer to add files individually. That's my method. So git add projects.md. And what that does is that stages our changes. So now if I run git status again, I can see that the changes have been staged, but they need to be committed. So the last step here is to run commit -m, and -m means that we're going to pass along a commit message on the same line here. So I'm going to say add project to list and hit enter. So if I clear again, just to give us some space here, and I do git status, I can see that I'm on my branch. There's nothing new to commit. The working tree is clean. So my changes have been committed locally, but I need to get them remote. I need to get them in GitHub. And so, yeah, it's so funny. This is a commit message is pretty straightforward. It's a pretty simple one. Typically, they're a lot more robust. But so in order to get our local changes, we need to push them up to our remote branch. So let's just double check and see what that is. So if we do git remote -v, this shows what our local repository is connected to. So we can see that it is connected to my Cecelia Creates OSS project. And then the upstream is still Devanshi's. So what we want to do is we want to do git push remote origin, and then the branch, which is add projects. Let me just make sure I have the right syntax there. And then, oh yeah, so it's just git push origin add project. Sorry, trying to do all this from, there it goes. Okay, sorry about that. So it's git push origin add project. The remote was just trying to sneak in there. So we can see a lot of things just happened here. So we push that remotely. And you can see here that we do have where it says create a pull request for add project on GitHub by visiting. So I could click on this. I could, oh yeah, because I'm not in VS Code. I could take this link and use that to, in order to create my pull request. Or I can kind of come back here to my fork, and I can see that add project had recent pushes less than a minute ago. I don't even need to refresh. GitHub just pushes that up there. So let's go ahead and just, since we're here, click compare and pull request. And again, we can see that it's my add projects branch on my repo is pulling into the main branch in Devanshi's. We'll add projects to list. And again, we'll add a message here that it resolves. And if you do the hashtag or pound symbol, you can see that you can link to the issue here. So it resolves number 1, which is add OSS projects to list, and that will link this pull request back to that original issue that we claimed. You can also review any of the changes here before you complete your pull request, in case you forgot any console logs, anything like that. But once you're ready, you'll go ahead and create the pull request. It's going to do a merge compatibility check, and then we can see here now that it is ready to be reviewed. And we can also see that it creates this link here to the original issue. And we can see that our pull request is actually showing in the issue. So if anybody else comes here, they'll see that we is already an open PR for that issue. So, all right. So that's the live walkthrough. We're, like I said, we're able to claim an issue. We forked and cloned the repo. We committed and pushed our changes, and we created our pull request. Before we move on, I'd like to stop here to see if anybody has any questions on the process that we just went through. We just covered a lot, so.
And by the way, if anyone wanted to use the audio, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you if that's another option.
Yeah, so Michaela's asking, how do you remember them all? Clearly I don't, but I will say that I didn't use it a lot today, but the GitHub CLI does come in handy. And I like to leverage the GitHub CLI because it does have some shortcuts. And another thing that I do is I use VS Code VS Code does also have Git control built into it. So sometimes if I have a more like a really big commit and I want to be able to granularly see each file, you can also do that via the UI in VS Code. And sometimes that can be a little bit easier than working with the terminal and trying to parse all that out.
Oh, Melissa's got a great question here.
Yeah, so if the maintainer rejects your pull request, what happens next and how does it look like on your end? Yeah, so a pull request can be closed out, and it depends on how they actually do that. So I can kind of maybe show this here. So as you could see, I when I created the screenshots, right, I went through this process before, and I had a previous pull request that was closed. And I closed it myself, but it could also be closed by the maintainer. So you still have, there's still a record of that pull request that exists, and you can see who closed it and when it was closed. Ideally, the maintainer will provide feedback. They'll post a comment. They'll say why they closed it. Maybe it didn't achieve the objectives. Maybe somebody else was already working on it. But you'll get a notification and you'll be able to see that the pull request was closed and who it was closed by. Ideally, this is why you read the contributing guide and go through that process of claiming the issue first. So. And yeah, that's a good point, Devanshi. I've been thinking about GitHub Desktop. I personally never used it, but I know people who love it. So if you prefer working with a UI, you can also leverage GitHub Desktop. All right. Any other questions on the contribution process so far? Okay, great. Well, the next section is brief. We're just going to talk about how you can find OSS projects. Really, this is a lot of links. So you can find projects either by causes or interest. So if there's demographic-based groups such as Women Who Code that you are involved with, there's also civic meetups or hackathons. And in the US and in Atlanta, we have Code for America and Code for Atlanta. It may be libraries or tools that you already use. For example, I use Nux Ionic, and that's why I want to contribute to it. It could also be companies or orgs that you're interested in professionally. So if you're looking to maybe get a job at a certain company, or or work with a certain tool and you're curious to see what their processes are like, you could also contribute there. There's also a number of open source sites that are dedicated to providing project lists. So there's definitely the official Hacktoberfest ones that you'll see, but there are many more out there as well that have lists of projects that are available. Now, this is going to be helpful for you as we move into the open source contribution practice, because now you're going to do what I just did. We'll have you go to github.com/Devanshi Modha/OSS projects.womenwhocode. You're going to comment on the open issue. You can feel free to claim it, even though I already did. Multiple people can add on to it. You're going to then fork and clone the repo. You're going to add your project that you'd like to work on to the list, and then save, stage, commit, and push the changes and create the pull request, submit it for review. So I'm going to go ahead and also share these slides here in the chat, because you can reference those. I know we went through a lot, and so we'll have the slides here available for you to reference. It's a view-only link, and so you can review all the screenshots. You can review that process list, however it is that you'd like to review. And we'd love to see you go through the process yourself.